Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Assalamu alaikum. Welcome back. 12 after 8 o'clock South African time, and we cross over to Sri Lanka. We understand that protesters occupying government buildings say they will remain until the president and the prime minister step down. So, quite a serious situation. I have been following that story, which is a developing story, and it is truly remarkable, amazing, and also frightening how things started developing in such a short space of time. Let's talk to Senior Assistant Editor Himal. Senior Assistant Editor of Himal South Asia. He is Marlon Ariyasinghe. A very good morning to you. Welcome to the program.
Hi, Jolie. Good morning.
Lovely to have you on the show. And as I was watching this, following this developing story on all major news media, the sense I kind of got at the time, obviously up until yesterday, was that despite the fact that there's this major protest that is rolling out, at least there has been no violence, there's been no damage to infrastructure. It seemed to have been pretty peaceful, but I have been proven wrong. I understand that a couple of people have died in the lead up to this protest, and there has been certain amount of damage. Fill us in on, firstly, how this started, what number of fatalities we're looking at, and then we'll talk about moving on from this point.
Yeah, so uh, on the July 9th, which is Saturday, when Sri Lankans from all over the island, when they started pouring into the capital in order to take part in this protest to pressurize the government and also the prime minister and the president to resign. Uh, Well, at the very beginning, the police and the armed forces they used excessive force against these protesters, and and they actually shot at protesters, not just tear gas and water cannons, but also they were being shot at, and protester or one person who was there was actually there is one fatality that was reported during that day, and along with that, there were many who were hospitalized, many who were assaulted and hospitalized during the course of the day. And even at night, this is something that I've also witnessed because I was there on the ground near the prime minister's private residence when there were protests going on. The police and the armed forces again used excessive force, and they were basically there were waves and waves after of tear gas being shot at protesters, and that there's a very specific incident which was caught on camera where you can see the police assaulting journalists, and there were about I think about 4 or 5 journalists who were attacked, and they were I mean this is live on camera, and they were hospitalized as well. And this there is the culmination of the protests were the prime minister's private residence was set on fire. It's still not clear who kind of who was the arsonist behind this. There is an investigation that is being taken place right now.
So I understand that at least 50 people, including journalists and policemen, have been injured so far. You've just confirmed that there has been one fatality. So there has been some damage to infrastructure. Do you think that if the police and army had handled the situation differently, there would have not been any fatality, there would have not been any injuries, and the protests would have continued very, very peacefully?
Absolutely. I think this is what we've been saying for the last 6 months because this is not the first example of excessive use of brutality by the police and armed forces that we've seen throughout the course of these 6 months. And of course, there is I've spoken about it elsewhere as well, but there's a culture of violence and brutality that is endemic to the forces as well. So this is a problem that is inherent with the police forces and how they handle protesters in these type of volatile situations. But if you are going back to the July 9th protests, I think you would have seen, with the storming of and occupying these official spaces, you would have also seen protesters relaxing at the pool. So we've had so there have been so many like I think this is also important to mention, because what we see on international media is generally quite a lot of doom and gloom, and it's all violence. But the mode of the protests were completely different throughout the day. Yes, there were situations where the protests were quite tense and volatile, and mostly, I think, according in my opinion, that was due to the excessive use that was excessive force that was used by the police forces. But there were so many instances where people were just walking and strolling around these very exclusive premises, and having a good time. And we I think there's so much of evidence to show that as well. So we see there are so many different aspects and different narratives to these protests than what is being out there in the international media.
Okay, we do know that there are a whole host of issues that has resulted in Sri Lanka reaching this point of protests. Obviously, it has to do with economic, political, and social turbulence in the country. How did we get here, and where to from here? Do you believe that there can be an amicable resolution? Do you believe that the president, the prime minister, will step down, and how will that process then unfold for the people of Sri Lanka?
Yeah, so those are all really good questions, and some of the questions that we are right now grappling with. About how we got here, I think there's enough expert analysis that is out there, which have shown some of the like, for example, the mismanagement of the economy, the kind of misguided political and economic decisions that were taken over the last 1.5 years, which have led us to this point where we are experiencing severe shortages of fuel, essential medicine, and there's also a looming food crisis. So this is how we got here. But if you're talking about what is next for Sri Lanka, and this is, I think, the question that everyone is asking. Well, right now there has not been any official resignations. The president and the PM are still in charge, and but there are lots of discussions and negotiations among political parties, which are part of the government as well as the opposition, in discussing what would be the next steps. Now, for example, yesterday evening, the opposition leader Sajid Premadasa came out and said that he is willing to take up the government. He's willing to lead the interim government. But the problem is he does not have a majority in the parliament. The parliament's majority is still with SLPP, which is the governing party, and also with Ranil Wickremesinghe and also Gotabaya Rajapaksa. So it's not very clear how this would unfold in the coming week. So it is, like you mentioned at the very beginning, it is very much a developing situation, and we are also waiting to see how this would develop in the next few days. And we are hoping for some sort of a political resolution and political stability to be established, within the next week. Because if not, because we have pressing economic issues that needs to be sorted out as well.
Now, I think Sri Lanka is not unique in the situation post the pandemic. The entire globe has been in lockdown. There are many, many countries that are still reeling from the 2 years of lockdown. And obviously, Sri Lanka has also felt the sting of the pandemic. Over and above of that, there's issues around possible mismanagement of funds. There might even be corrupt practices within government, and that is why you find yourself in the situation that you're finding yourself now. We understand economists are saying that Sri Lanka may not be able to repay its foreign debt, and have urged the government to approach the IMF. Do you believe there might be hope on that front? Because if the IMF gives Sri Lanka a loan now, advances a loan to them, would you be able to get yourselves out of the situation you find yourself in and ensure that you have a government that manages the economy as it's meant to be managed?
Well, I'm not an economic expert, but from what I've been hearing, yes, we have been discussing with the IMF for a couple of months now. And again, this is one of the decisions that was delayed. Now, there were economic experts who were begging, well, basically, asking the government to discuss with the IMF and get their expert opinion on a possible deal and a possible way forward. As way back in late last year. So finally, when the government agreed to meet with the IMF and the discussions have started. The deal, as I understand it, will take some time. I think five 5 6 months for the deal to
Mm,
be properly negotiated. And I think the IMF has been consistently saying that they are willing to sit on they're willing to help Sri Lanka and support Sri Lanka in whatever means possible. But there are certain conditions. Like for example, we have to one of the things that we need to manage is the kind of we have to limit and lessen corruption. And they also need some sort of assurance, I think, that once the deal is agreed, once these conditions are agreed, that these conditions will be the government will stick to these conditions when the deal is being presented. So yeah, so that's what's there from the IMF fund. And I think Sri Lankans also understand that this is, at this moment, this is the only way to go, that this is the only possible support that is available, because we have had countries like India and China who have been supporting us through credit lines, through donations of medicine and essential goods, and even like food. But that is not sustainable. This is we if the economy has to get back on, we have to listen to the IMF, and we need to come to some sort of a agreement that would be sustainable, and that would help Sri Lanka in
Finally, Marlon, a very quick question before we wrap up. Do you believe that the people on the ground will have the patience to wait it out till the monies come through from the IMF? Your country is very dependent on tourism as well. So it's important that the people kind of go back to work and get that industry up and running to get very much needed foreign currency into the country. Your thoughts on those two issues?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And I think, I mean, if we take from Friday to now this Friday was just before the protests, this island-wide protest, and if you take it now, if you look at it now, nothing has changed in terms of our economic situation. We are still very much in crisis. So, but I think the people do understand that. The people do feel they know that this is not going to go away anytime soon. It's not going to be an overnight. There's not going to be an overnight solution to these problems, and that we will have to be resilient, and we will have to kind of ride out the next 6 months, and it's going to be very difficult. But why they came out, of their homes, and they poured into Colombo, even with all the fuel shortages and with public transportation being crippled. They came to Colombo, and they protested all over the island as well, to show that political stability is needed. That this is the first thing that they want. They want political stability first, which means, which according to them, is the resignation of the current government, including the president and the PM, and then political stability will usher in some sort of economic stability. This is, I think, the belief of the people. So the people are aware that the next 6 months is going to be difficult, but in order for them to have some sort of resilience, they need optimism and hope that things will change, and a new government, a political force will usher in that kind of optimism, and that people will feel that they have done something substantial, like something concrete, to change the situation that they're in.
Okay, thank you indeed, Marlon Ariyasinghe from Sri Lanka. At least the protests are not violent. That infrastructure, apart from the Prime Minister's residence being set alight, some arson is getting a bit crazy. It seems to have been by and large very peaceful, and there hasn't been damage to the infrastructure. And that is really very sensible as far as the people are concerned. Let's hope and pray it continues to be a very peaceful protest going forward. Thank you for your time, and we will talk again soon. Have a great day.
Thank you, Julie. Thank you.
It,
Bye bye.
it is exactly 8:28 a.m. Standing by to talk to us from the Holy Lands is none other than multi-award winning journalist and media personality Faisal Patel. Do stay with us. Some ad breaks, and then we'll be joined by Faisal Patel, inshallah.